In July 2001, the routine operations of an underwater survey team took an unexpected and thrilling turn in the depths of the Gulf of Mexico. What was supposed to be a standard sonar scan for a natural gas pipeline project ended up making headlines. At nearly 5,000 feet below the surface, the unmistakable shape of a submarine came into view, long and narrow, with telltale signs of German U-boat design. This was no ordinary wreck. It was U-166, a submarine lost to history for almost 6 decades. Its discovery solved one mystery but introduced another. U-166 was not where it was supposed to be. For years, official reports had placed the submarine much closer to the mouth of the Mississippi River. Yet here it was, deep in the Gulf, hundreds of miles from its presumed final resting place. Historians, naval experts, and the media buzzed with excitement. The rediscovery of U-166 was like finding a long-lost puzzle piece from World War II, one that needed careful examination to understand fully. To uncover the significance of this discovery, we must travel back in time to 1942, a time when the oceans were battlegrounds and the Axis powers launched ambitious naval operations to disrupt Allied supply routes. Germany's U-boats were the spearhead of these efforts, roaming the Atlantic in what was known as the Battle of the Atlantic. These stealthy submarines, nicknamed wolf packs, hunted convoys carrying vital food, fuel, and war supplies to Europe and the Americas. The goal was simple: cripple the enemy's ability to sustain the war effort. In early 1942, under the codename Operation Drumbeat, the U-boat fleet was unleashed on the American coastlines, bringing the war to North America's doorstep. German submarines boldly prowled the eastern seaboard, and by mid-1942, the Gulf of Mexico also became a target. U-166 was a Type 9C submarine, a long-range model designed for distant missions. Under the command of Captain Lieutenant Hans-Günther Kuhlmann, U-166 embarked on its first combat patrol. Its mission was to disrupt shipping in the Gulf, and with a war raging on both land and sea, every ship sunk mattered to the German effort. Kuhlmann's orders were clear: attack merchant ships, cripple supply routes, and evade capture. The Gulf of Mexico had become a dangerous place for Allied vessels. Convoys that once sailed safely found themselves targeted by lurking submarines, which slipped silently beneath the waves and struck when least expected. On July 30, 1942, U-166 encountered a promising target, the SS Robert E. Lee, a passenger steamship traveling from the Caribbean toward New Orleans. The Robert E. Lee wasn't carrying soldiers but civilians, including vacationers and refugees fleeing conflict zones. As it neared the safety of the Mississippi River, U-166 made its move. From beneath the waves, Kuhlmann gave the order to fire. A torpedo shot through the water, trailing bubbles in its wake. Seconds later, a loud explosion rocked the Robert E. Lee. The blast tore into the side of the ship, sending seawater flooding into its compartments. The crew aboard the Robert E. Lee acted quickly. Despite the chaos, lifeboats were lowered and distress signals were sent. The ship's escort, the USS PC-566, a small patrol craft under the command of Lieutenant Commander Herbert Claudius, was already scanning the waters for threats. When the torpedo struck, Claudius knew the attacker had to be nearby. Wasting no time, he ordered his crew to prepare for a counterattack. PC-566 dropped depth charges into the water, hoping to cripple or destroy the lurking submarine. Explosions echoed beneath the waves as the depth charges detonated one after another. At the time, the Navy believed PC-566's depth charge attack was successful, sinking U-166 near the wreckage of the Robert E. Lee. The incident was reported, filed, and over the years became accepted history. U-166 was listed as sunk off the Louisiana coast, and Claudius's crew was credited with its destruction. But as the rediscovery in 2001 revealed, the reality was far more complicated. The wreck of U-166 lay far from where it was thought to have been sunk, creating new questions. Did it manage to escape after the attack? If so, how did it end up so deep in the Gulf? While some pieces of the puzzle are now known, much remains speculation. Some historians suggest that U-166 may have been damaged during the depth charge attack, forcing it to retreat farther out to sea before succumbing to its injuries. Others propose that the submarine might have been sunk by aerial patrols later, as it tried to limp back to safety. Unfortunately, the exact sequence of events may never be fully understood. U-166's story, like so many lost to the depths of war, is one of heroism, tragedy, and the fog of conflict. The discovery of U-166 also brought attention to the broader significance of the U-boat campaign in the Gulf of Mexico. Between 1942 and 1943, German submarines operated extensively in the region, sinking or damaging dozens of merchant vessels. The Gulf was a critical shipping route for oil, fuel, and other supplies destined for the Allied war effort. German U-boats patrolled the area to disrupt these shipments and force the United States to divert resources to defend its coastal waters. At the height of the U-boat campaign, American merchant vessels were at significant risk. The Gulf's shipping lanes were initially poorly defended, as the U.S. Navy had focused its resources on the Atlantic and Pacific theaters. However, the sudden escalation of attacks forced the Navy to increase patrols, convoy escorts, and anti-submarine operations in the Gulf. By mid-1943, technological improvements such as sonar and radar, along with air patrols and better coordination among Allied forces, reduced the U-boat threat in the region. Despite the short operational career of U-166, its discovery has contributed to a more accurate understanding of the events in the Gulf of Mexico during World War II. The wreck is now recognized as a war grave, with all 52 crew members lost in the sinking. It serves as a reminder of the hidden dangers faced by both the Allied and Axis navies in their struggle for control over the world's oceans. Out of respect for the fallen crew, the wreck site is protected and has not been disturbed since its identification. The discovery of U-166 also corrected the historical record regarding the actions of Lieutenant Commander Claudius and the crew of PC-566. Though they were initially credited with sinking the submarine in 1942, the fact that U-166 was found far from the original attack site suggests that the submarine likely escaped the engagement. However, Claudius and his crew were still recognized for their quick response in defending Robert E. Lee and carrying out a successful depth charge attack, even if it did not result in the immediate sinking of U-166. The identification of the U-166 wreck was made possible through advanced sonar technology and remotely operated vehicles, which allowed researchers to survey the wreck site in detail. Images captured from the ROV show that the submarine is largely intact, with some visible damage to its bow, possibly from depth charges. The discovery offers valuable insights into the condition of U-boats after sinking and provides historians with a better understanding of German naval operations in the Gulf. In total, the U-boat campaign in the Gulf of Mexico resulted in the sinking of approximately 56 ships, with over 1,200 lives lost. Although this campaign is less well known than the larger Battle of the Atlantic, it underscores the global nature of the conflict and the strategic importance of maritime supply routes. The loss of U-166 marked one of the final significant U-boat operations in the Gulf, as increasing Allied defenses made it difficult for German submarines to operate effectively in the region. Today, U-166 lies silently on the ocean floor, a reminder of a war that spanned the globe and touched even the waters of the Gulf of Mexico. Its rediscovery has not only corrected historical records, but also highlighted the enduring impact of naval warfare during World War II. The mystery of how U-166 met its end may never be fully solved, but the submarine's story continues to offer valuable lessons about the complexities of wartime operations and the hidden dangers beneath the waves.